Hey guys, for today's lesson, we're going to be doing something that's a little bit, it's kind of the opposite of all of the multiplication that we've been doing. So for today, we're going to be doing something called finding and then factoring out something called a greatest common factor. We'll talk about what that is in a second. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be finding some term that goes into all of these polynomials. We're going to have a couple different examples so you can see it a couple times. And you're going to be pulling that term out of it. It's kind of like the opposite version of distribution. So distribution where you have some number on the outside of some grouping symbols and you multiply into them. We're going to be finding out what you can pull out. So this is what we're going to be doing. You're going to look at this, or you're going to look at a polynomial. Here we have a quadratic polynomial. So we have 1, 2, 3 terms. That's a trinomial. And we're going to think about what number or what term can go into all three of those terms. So is there a number that goes into 4, that goes into 6, that goes into 8? Well, yes, there is. So the highest number that goes into all of those numbers is 2, right? So a 2 goes into 4, 2 goes into 6, 2 goes into 8. And we're going to like pull that or like divide that out of all of those terms. So like 4 divided by 2 is 2. We got to carry down that x squared. 6 divided by 2 is, well, it's positive 6, so that's 3. Carry down the x. And negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. So you can see how all of these terms were divided by 2, and we pulled that out to the side. Now, if we were to do that opposite, you would multiply those and you would get that term again. But as we're factoring out a greatest common factor, that's what it's going to look like. So that means right here, 2 is the GCF, greatest common factor. 2 is the GCF because 2 is the greatest number that goes into all of the terms. So if we look over here, let's try to think about, we just have two terms here. So we have 25x squared and negative 35. What's the biggest number that goes into both of those at the same time? Well, 5 goes into 25 and 5 also goes into 35. So that means that 5 is probably the biggest thing that goes into both of those. So we're going to pull out a 5, put that on the outside of some parentheses. 25x squared divided by 5 is 5x squared. And negative 35 divided by 5 is negative 7. So we want to think about, if I did this backwards, would it bring me back to the original answer? 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times negative 7 is 35. So that is what our answer is going to be. We pulled out a 5. That's the biggest thing that goes into all of these terms, or both of those terms, and that is on the outside. So that's another GCF. Sometimes, we're going to think about this kind of example. Sometimes the greatest common factor can be something that is not just a number. So we'll talk about that in a second. So in this example, we want to think about what's the largest number that goes into both 42 and 36. Well, a 2 would go into both of those. That would work. And also 3 would go into both of those. So that's 3 is greater than 2, so that would work as well. But the biggest number that goes into 42 and 36 is 6. So we're going to divide both of these terms by 6 first. So 42 divided by 6 is 7. Carry down the x squared. And 36 divided by 6, that is going to be 6. Carry down the x. There's no number that goes into both of those anymore. However, is there something else that we can pull out of both of those terms? Well, if we look at them, both terms have an x. This one has an x squared. This one has an x by itself. So I can take a variable out of both of those terms. The highest, so not only do we want to think about what number can we pull out, but are there any variables that go into all of the terms? In our examples above, if we look at these, that number at the end doesn't have a variable, so we can't pull a variable out of those two. But here, and for the other two examples that we're going to use, I can pull a variable out of that. So x squared and x, the largest number of variables, there's just one x there, so I can't pull out an x squared. So there's one x there, and there are two x's right there. So that means I can only pull out one of the x's. So I take that x, I put that on the outside as well, 6x. So when I divide the 7x squared by x squared, take out an x, that's just x by itself. And take an x out of here, so that just becomes 6. And that is going to be our final answer. We took out the greatest number and the greatest number of x's, our variable. We'll do that again, but with some higher level numbers. So first of all, we want to think about what number goes into 9, -3, and 12. So the biggest number that goes in there is 3. And here we have 5 x's, here we have 3 x's, here we have 2 x's. So what is the largest number of x's that I can pull out of all of them? Well, it's 2, right? Because I can't pull out 5 x's out of that. I can't pull 3 x's out of that, but I can pull x squared out of everything. So we have to go through and we divide everything. So 9x to the 5th divided by 3x squared. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X to the 5th divided by x squared. So we subtract the exponents. 5 minus 2 is 3. Then 3x cubed divided by 3x squared. So that would just be 3 divided by 3 is 1. X, and then x3 divided by x2 is x to the 1. Kind of getting a weird trend there. And again, 12x squared. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. And x squared divided by x squared, so that's all gone. We took those away. So that would be our final answer right there. So that's one more. And for our final example for the day, let's look at this one. So we have 14x to the 6th minus 42x to the 5th plus 21x to the 4th. So first of all, what number goes into all of those? Well, that number, the highest number would be 7. And we have x to the 6th, x to the 5th, x to the 4th. That means that the 4th is that's the largest number of x's that I can pull out of all of them. So we're going to have x to the 4th on the outside as well. So let's go through and divide. Divide by the number first. 14 divided by 7 is 2x. And then so we had 6. We're taking out 4. So that's 6 minus 4 is 2. It's good. Minus, because we have a minus. 42 divided by 7 is 6. X to the 5th divided by x to the 4th is x to the 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. And 21 divided by 7. So that's going to be 3. X to the 4th divided by x to the 4th. That means they're all gone. So we just have a 3. We close that off. That's the answer. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, please come to my office hours. And good luck on the homework.